Good morning. Welcome to the UU Church of the South Hills, also known as Sunnyhill. We're so delighted that you're here and you could join us for this service. Our mission at Sunnyhill is to create a more just and compassionate community within and beyond our walls. My name is Krista Stanley, and I serve as a worship associate for this congregation. If you're a newcomer or a visitor to our congregation, please go to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says New to Sunnyhill to receive more information about our congregation and to receive our weekly email newsletter. If you're joining us online today, please say hello or good morning in the comments on Facebook or YouTube. We'd like to hear from you and extend a warm welcome to you as well. For all those who are here in person, a gentle reminder, please silence your cell phones and other electronic devices so that we can enjoy this service uninterrupted of buzzing or ringing. If you have a restless infant or toddler with you today and need a place to take a break outside of the sanctuary, we have an infant care room back in the corner that you can access from the back. You can go through the hallway and you can still hear and see the service from back in that room. Today is our annual All Souls Day service, during which we remember all those who have died, who have been members of our circle of families and friends, all those who have been members of our gathered community and the larger community as well. We celebrate their lives, their influence, and they continue to have in our lives. Our chalice lighting is a responsive reading. After each phrase that I read, please respond by saying, "We light our chalice." In memory of those whom we have loved and lost, we light our chalice. In recognition of the grief that all of us feel, we light our chalice. In gratitude for the love that binds all to all else, now and forever, we light our chalice.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to start today with a membership ceremony. So if our newest members can come forward. Okay. We have another big group this morning. All right, so I'm going to take a moment to introduce everybody. When I say your name, just let us know who you are. We're going to start with Meg Fennell. Meg and her family are residents of Bethel Park. She and her husband Curtis have 3 wildly fantastic children, Liam, Annie, and Wyatt. She likes to spend her time with her family and tries to be involved in their lives in both the big and small moments. She enjoys running, gardening, and cooking. She hopes to return soon to cooking full-time, as that is her career. She chose to attend Sunnyhill to continue her spiritual growth and to strengthen her connection with this wonderful community. Next, we have Leah and Ryan Lantz. Ryan and Leah live in Mount Lebanon with their 5-year-old son, Arthur, and Leah's father, Dan. They're originally from the Pacific Northwest and attended First Unitarian Church in Portland, Oregon, where Ryan and Leah met in the young adults group. Ryan works as a property manager and has spent most of his career working with low-income tenants, most recently at McKeesport Housing Authority. He enjoys setting himself challenges in Fallout 76 and other games on a PC he built himself 10 years ago, and he hopes to build a new PC soon. Leah is a broadcast journalist for WTAE Channel 4, where she is the executive producer for Pittsburgh's Action News 4 at 4, 5, and 6. In her spare time, she loves taking day trip adventures with her family, music, flamenco dance, making floral wreaths, and learning to code in Python. She is excited to start singing with the Sunnyhill Choir. As most people who meet Arthur quickly find out, he is a huge fan of the game Minecraft and also loves recess. He's currently in kindergarten at Foster Elementary, where his friends call him Art. And next we have Susan Spencer. And Susan is a good friend of mine and the Broaded family, and we've been working on getting her here for a really long time, so it's a big day in our lives. And it does take a while to get someone who lives in the North Hills to drive all the way to the South Hills for church, so that's her excuse. She has 3 sons, Liam, who's 13, Ben, who's 10, and Luke, who's 7. Susan is a pediatric speech-language pathologist, and she looks forward to getting to know folks at Sunnyhill and participating in events and programs. Next, we have Dennis Thread. Dennis is a writer, director, and producer in film and live events of all kinds, including theater, television, and opera, across the entertainment industry, as well as with institutional and corporate clients, and in collaboratively created and planned public rituals. He has been deeply involved with UU congregations in Dallas, Newton, Massachusetts, and New York City, and helped nurture small group ministry in 2 congregations. He values Unitarian Universalism for its community, for the unique religious education received by his 2 now-grown children, and as a home for his own endless pursuit of the divine in all its mysterious, myriad, and ever-living forms. And next we have Laura K. Coffey. After her May 2021 retirement from a 35-year child welfare career, Laura was on a quest to find the perfect city, knowing it was time to leave Springfield, Illinois. She fell in love with Pittsburgh from afar during the pandemic. After discovering things like City of Asylum, Jim's daily meditations online, and the concept of cookie tables, she knew that Pittsburgh was a city with a heart and soul. And so it was love before first sight. Emerging from the Fort Pitt Tunnel during that first visit almost exactly a year ago felt like a rebirth, and Laura knew Pittsburgh would truly be home. She and Dennis found a house in the South Side and moved last December. Sunnyhill is the spiritual home she always wanted but never found until now. And next we have Carly Colantuno. Carly is a resident of Upper St. Clair with 1 elementary age, 1 college age, and 1 adult daughter, 2 cats, a dog, and a fish. She is a hospice nurse with an interest in health and fitness and a longtime love of cooking. She has chosen Sunnyhill for the shared values, to grow spiritually and to become part of a larger community, to find comfort and opportunity to help others as a whole. She is excited to join and start to get to know everyone. And last but not least, we have Joan Reddy and Greg Boris. Joan was born in Joliet, Illinois. Joan and Greg were longtime members of All Souls UU Church in Sioux Falls. Joan earned her master's in library science from the University of Minnesota. She served in public libraries as director and assistant director. She enjoys Irish Cayley dancing, travel, hosting exchange students and travelers, and reading. The joys of her life are Greg, her 2 daughters, and her 2 grandchildren, ages 4 and 6. The grandchildren in Upper St. Clair were the magnet for the move to Mount Lebanon 2 months ago. And Greg was born in Chicago. After graduating college and marrying Joan, a job with the public schools drew them to Sioux Falls. Greg received his doctorate from the University of Minnesota and has taught at all levels from the very young to higher education, as well as serving as a school administrator and policy director of a child advocacy organization. His last job was with the University of South Dakota School of Medicine as a leadership and policy specialist. In addition to sharing Joan's interests and joys, Greg loves to bicycle. He is also a strong believer in civic engagement and puts his energies into transportation planning and livable communities.
Hold on a second. You'll have a chance again to applaud in a moment. Today we welcome into our congregation these new members who have chosen to become a part of this church. To our new members, we are so glad to have you with us and delighted that you've chosen to share this part of your journey with us. Will you accept our gifts of fellowship, mutual support, and service? Will you offer us your unique presence and gifts? And will you work with us as we seek to create a community and a world dedicated to compassion and justice? If so, please say, we will. Congregation, will you welcome these new members with the warmth and comfort of your fellowship? Will you seek to add your strengths and talents to the new gifts that they bring us? And will you share our triumphs and our struggles as our community grows and changes? If so, please say, we will. Let us say together the words that are on our screens, which reflect our common purpose and common love in the midst of our diversity of beliefs. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. Please join me again in welcoming our new members.
In that spirit of welcoming our new members and anyone else who has landed here to play today, please rise and by your spirit to join in singing Whoever You Are. So this is just a cappella. It's kind of a chant we're going to sing over and over again, and there's opportunity to break out into harmony if you feel it. And yeah, we're just going to do this. Pitch pipe. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Keep going. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. One more time, make it big. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Hold that last line again. Whomever you love, we welcome you. One more time. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Thank you so much. Please be seated.
To kick off our annual pledge drive and stewardship campaign, we have this year's stewardship chair, Mark Mortimer.
How's a follow-up after that song there? We can talk a little bit about the pledge campaign. So my name is Mark Mortimer. My wife, Elizabeth, and I have been members here for 25 years. Our reasons for coming, staying, and engaging here have changed and evolved during this time. Initially, it was to find a spiritual place for our wedding. We were probably 6 months into looking and visiting lots of churches, and it was that feeling when we walked through the doors and engaged with someone and sat down, and we knew 5 minutes in this was it. That's what happened 25 and a half years ago. And that changed, right? We got married with a Unitarian minister, and then we started to have children. So then it shifted to really find a loving and open-minded religious education for our 3 children. And then ultimately, we stayed because it's our community. It's an extension of our family where we fight for justice. We learn from one another, and we continue to give to and get back from this incredible congregation. Over the years, Elizabeth and I have served this congregation as board members, church staff, coming-of-age mentors, members and chairs of various committees, including service auction, safe congregation, facilities, One World, religious education, and OWL teachers. In fact, I just left Amanda downstairs with 14 teenagers. We're talking about sexuality language, so I have to immediately get back to her. Our 3 children, who are now adults, I use that term somewhat loosely, were raised in this church. They went through all of RE, OWL, Coming of Age Youth Group. They completed their Eagle projects, Silver projects. A lot with your assistance, they were able to get through their high school years and really lay the foundation for them as adults, and I do say that seriously. And now I'm proud to chair this year's stewardship committee. We're kicking off Sunnyhill's 2023 canvas today. It's going to end on November 30th. Once it closes on the 30th, that's when we want to have all pledges back. There'll be a budget meeting and there'll be a budget meeting on December 11th with the congregation. And so we will go through the pledge process now to really lock down what that budget's going to look like for 2023, and the canvas drives the budget. It's all about it's all about the canvas. The canvas is our operating budget. As a point of reference, and I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes with some numbers because I've been in front of you before, and I've been involved with the canvas for many years in different aspects. It's about so much more than numbers and money. But there's a couple of data points that I want to share with you just as a point of reference. The average annual cost per adult in this room for members is about $1,500 a year. So that's what it cost us to operate this facility and keep the lights on, pay the mortgage, debt service, keep the internet going, and keep upgrading the internet, things like that. And roughly about $500 per child. Those are costs, and that's what we try to cover with our canvas. The goal for 2023 is $449,000. And I had to write that a couple of times. I've written it like 3 different times I had the exact amount, it was 449, 491 or something. And then I thought, well, we can round that up to $500,000. I don't make light of it. It's a big number. It's been a big number for the last 5 or so years as this congregation has continued to grow. And when we expanded this facility to build the facility, all of those things, it's a big number, and it takes every single one of you for us to make that happen. The budget this year is a 5% increase over last year. So it reflects a 5% increase. My ask of this congregation is to consider increasing your pledge from last year, previous years, in the range of 5 to 10% if you are able. And I know everyone is different, and it's a personal decision that you have to make, but that's the ask. You might say, well, what for? Other than we're continuing to, obviously, expenses continue to go up. We are asking for a cost of living increase for our staff. That's one thing. And the second piece of this is, that's personal as well too, is we want to expand Bethany Thornton's position. So she is the manager of membership, I think has been her title since she moved into that. So we want to move her to a director of membership. which essentially is increasing her paid hours. And I say that with emphasis because everybody who knows Bethany knows that she probably is in this building more than the lights are on. So the website has been updated under the Pledge 2023 button. You'll see when you log on, it's there. You click on the button, it takes you right into the form. It also has the UUA guidelines for suggested giving, and we would ask you to review that. I think oftentimes, and there's a lot of new members in this audience. We've had a tremendous amount of new members in the last couple of years, and so from a guidance standpoint, we use that UUA table as guidance for your initial pledges, and then existing members, again, please reference that. I think Bethany will have a copy of that on the table outside in Fellowship Hall once service is concluded, and we'll probably do another table in coming weeks as well. So now it's the why, and this is really what I'm excited to talk to you about, right? This is why each of us is here, and those of you that have joined us online as well. We realize that asking for money, let alone an increase in giving, is difficult. These are times of economic uncertainty and high inflation, right? We hear about it every single day. Personally, Elizabeth and I are fortunate. We have two children, Simon and Lucinda, in college today, and they're probably going to be in college for the next several years. And so this forces us to make some adjustments, some big adjustments from a spending standpoint and from a budget standpoint. We're happy that the midterm elections will be done in a few weeks, and that as we start to think through this, in terms of donations in that area, that won't be part of our budget for next year. So we've already had the conversations around how are we going to make that work, and I would ask you to sort of, that's how we think through it. The other piece, and this is just an opportunity for me to do a proud dad brag, is, now I can find this, here it is. So our son Simon that I mentioned, he sent Elizabeth and I a text last Friday, just completely unsolicited, you know, and that's how we communicate. That's our new conversation mode, right? We send texts back and forth. And it was a link to this women's partnership program. It's essentially this organization called St. Mary's that is for homeless women and families in the Boston area. So it serves the underserved and certainly some poverty-stricken neighborhoods in the Boston area. So his text said this: raise $700 this week through DELT for this shelter. So this organization that he runs. Chose this organization because remembering when I was young, Sunnyhill would raise money for organizations like this. And that just, that sent us over the edge. It's a reminder of how Sunnyhill just continues to touch our soul every single day. And as parents, and parents out there, right, we're always trying to figure out, are we doing the right thing, saying the right thing, raising our kids the right way? And although there's always lots and lots of things that you're like raising your eyes and saying, is this my kid? This is certainly one of them. And in the context of Sunnyhill, this is why we're here. This is one of the many reasons why we're here. So to just close this out, as a congregation, as a member, and certainly from a stewardship committee, we're cautiously optimistic that this pandemic is behind us. And although we must remain still diligent through the winter and in the future, we're in a much better place than we were 2 years ago. In-person attendance during Sunday service is approaching pre-COVID levels, and I look out and there's probably, it looks like we're at about 85, 90% capacity right now. We're doing a new member ceremony today. Again, this seems to be almost monthly, and that is a great sign for what Sunnyhill is all about. We're one of the only congregations, I wouldn't just say in this area, I wouldn't even say in Pittsburgh, I would say in the country that is growing membership. That's not happening anywhere else. If you were to leave the sanctuary and walk the halls and look in the RE rooms, the RE classes are packed with students right now. As I mentioned, Al is back on. We just completed another successful pumpkin patch. I counted them on the way in. There's 29 pumpkins left. There were 75 pallets 3 weeks ago. So a lot of lifting that happened from members of this congregation. That's a big deal. And that helps. That's certainly fundraising and things like that help us, not just from a financial standpoint, but it's very visible. It ties us to this community. It's an opportunity for us to reach out and get to know our neighbors a little bit. We hosted an incredible pancake breakfast this spring. It felt like it did pre-COVID, and for us that attended, it was really really special. Sharing circles are in full swing. The service auction parties a few weeks ago were incredibly successful, and we had over 100 members that showed up for the soup and chili cook-off. So it feels like we're really moving in the right direction cautiously. Despite all the grace and joy afforded us over this last year, we reflect today and in the future on the loss of 5 long-term members and several friends of the congregation and certainly family during this All Souls service. We do so as a loving and committed community here at Sunnyhill. Thank you for your time and consideration and your continued support.
The song we're about to sing, Breaths, is based on a poem by Senegalese storyteller and poet Birago Diop, set to music by Say Barnwell of Sweet Honey in the Rock. Barnwell said, "Hearing this poem for the first time at a funeral transformed my grief and affirmed my worldview, which includes and reveres my ancestors. When I heard the poem a second time years later, it began to sing itself to me, and I am glad that I have been able to share with you what I heard. As often as we call the names of those who have gone on, we enliven them, but we must then learn how to experience them anew. The poem provides entree into this new experience." The words of the original poem read in part as follows: "Listen more often to things than to beings. Hear the fire's voice, hear the voice of the water. In the wind, hear the sobbing of the trees. It is our ancestors breathing."
I invite you to participate in a couple of different ways. This is kind of a choose your own adventure. There's a fantastic bass line that you can sing along throughout the song. Can you hit us with that real quick? Boom, 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 boom. Nice, so that's one way. The song also, invites us to listen to sounds in nature. It's the voices of our ancestors. So at the end of each chorus, there's some wind noises that we can make together, which basically go whoosh, ah, whoosh, ah, whoosh, Do it with me. Again. So please join in on that at the end of the chorus, or any time. Just feel that. It's beautiful. And then, of course, the words from the poem are the chorus. We invite you to sing that. Please stand, rise, and by your spirit as we enjoy this song together.
Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, ever left. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees. They are in the groaning woods. They are in the crying grass. They are in the moaning rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They are in the woman's breast. They are in the wailing child. They are with us in our homes. They are with us in the crowd. The dead have a pact with the living. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Thank you.
Each year around All Souls Day, we take a moment to remember and hold in our hearts members and friends of Sunnyhill who have died in the past year. We also give people an opportunity to remember and put forward the names of any family members or friends who have died either this year or in the more distant past, so that we might all honor their lives and the memories we have of them. In the past year, the following members of our congregation died: Sally Beck, Nancy Bellamy, Stuart Coblin, Michelle Grieger, and Rebecca Dick Hurwitz. We have also been asked to remember quite a few friends and family members of congregants who have died either this year or in years past, whose names will appear on our screens in just a moment. If you're watching online and you would like us to have the name of someone that you want us to remember today, please enter their names in the comments section. While that's going on, we'll also have a ritual of remembrance for those of you who are here. We invite anyone who would like to come forward in a moment, take a stone from one of the bowls that we have up front, and silently drop it in the vase in remembrance of any loved ones you have lost and are thinking of today. And our ushers will bring people up one row at a time if you wish to take part in this ritual, which we will begin now.
of the leaves we remember.
As the year starts and it ends, we remember.
We remember.
When we're weary and need strength, we remember.
When we're lost and sick at heart, we remember.
When we've joys we yearn to share, we remember.
We remember. So long as we live, they too shall live. They are now a part of us. They are now a part of us. They are now a part of us.
And we remember.
We remember. We remember.
I have a couple of joys and sorrows that were submitted by members of the congregation. After each one that I read, please respond by saying, "We hold you in our hearts." A joy from Cindy Mincer, who, as I mentioned last week, was having some complications after a knee surgery. Cindy says, "Home, sweet home. I am home and so happy. Thank you again for your positive vibes, calls, texts, and cards. I am truly blessed to be part of such a loving, helpful, friendly community. Thank you so much." To Cindy, we hold you in our hearts. A joy shared by the caring team. Congratulations to Laura and David Spivak for the birth of their first grandchild, Ariana. To Laura and David and family, we hold you in our hearts. Please join me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. At this darkening time of the year, our thoughts turn to things past, to life retreating, to those who are no longer with us. Images come to our minds of dear companions who once graced our lives, loved ones whom we miss, persons whose lives have made an impact on our lives, of all those who were here contributing, caring, and now are gone. Our memories bring both joy and sadness. Let us not push these feelings away, for our recollections attest to the enduring importance of these friends, this love, our memories. May these brave and lovely spirits live again in our tender thoughts and prove that death and distance are powerless to sever the bonds that connect truly loving hearts. Let us pause now for a moment of shared silence. May we be held in love as we remember those whom we ourselves have loved and those who loved us. May our gratitude sparkle in our lives. May our tears lubricate our souls. Help us to know that we are not alone in our grieving, and help us also to come to that place in which we can take what we learned from those who have gone before us into our own lives. May we know that we too are mortal, and that the only enduring legacy we leave is the love that shines through our lives. Amen. In the Christian tradition, All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day have been celebrated on November 1st and 2nd, respectively, since the late Middle Ages. The timing of these holidays is a result of the appropriation of earlier pagan holidays that took place at the end of the harvest season and at the beginning of the darker part of the year. All Saints' Day has traditionally been a time to remember the saints and martyrs who have died, while All Souls' Day has been a time to remember everyone who has gone on, all saints and sinners, everyone who has been a part of the gathered community. The phrase all souls has a particularly Unitarian connotation because of something that one of our own saints, if we were to have saints, William Ellery Channing, said in one of his famous sermons from the 19th century. He said, "I am a living member of the great family of all souls. I cannot improve or suffer myself without diffusing good or evil around me through an ever-enlarging sphere. You, as an individual, cannot help but spread good or evil indefinitely around you and through succeeding generations." That's a pretty good 19th century articulation of the Unitarian concepts of individual responsibility and radical interdependence, which is to say that we as human beings have choices and responsibility for how we live our lives. And whatever we choose to do affects not just ourselves, but others within our spheres of influence now and for generations to come. The phrase, "I am a member of the great family of all souls," caught on, and as a result, a number of our congregations took on the name All Souls. There are All Souls UU congregations in Washington, D.C., New York, Kansas City, Tulsa, Indianapolis, and elsewhere dotted around the country. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm that each member of the human family has inherent worth, and that each is also inherently flawed. It is through covenant, through the promises that we make to each other and to the universe, that we call ourselves and others back to right relationship, back into the fold of that great family of all souls. We also affirm that what we do in our lives, the influence we have upon others, the achievements, for better or worse, extend beyond our own lives. Channing wrote about that ever-enlarging sphere that reaches succeeding generations. In our tradition, when we celebrate All Souls' Day, we are celebrating the influence that those who have died have had and continue to have on us and on others whose lives they touched. Even when they are dead, they are members of the great family of all souls, and on this day we honor them, not as saints, but as human beings whose influence is still felt in important ways. As I've grown older, I've tried to start coming to terms with some of my relatives who have died, who were not necessarily kind or loving people. People who were, for one reason or another, not easy to love or to remember with much fondness. For me, one of those people was my paternal grandfather, my father's father, whom we called Grandpa McGaw. Clarence Wilfred McGaw was born in 1907 in Pike County in rural southeastern Ohio and lived most of his adult life in the house where my father was born, a building that was originally a one-room schoolhouse that my grandfather had attended as a child, which he later turned into a dwelling place. Because he had blonde hair as a child, he was given the nickname Dutch, and that was the name that stuck. Everyone called him Dutch McGaw or C.W. McGaw. Believe me, never Clarence. My grandfather grew up in hard circumstances, without much in the way of material goods. There was a history of mental illness and depression in his family, and 2 of his brothers died by apparent suicide, both by particularly gruesome means. No doubt because of some of his experiences in childhood and young adulthood, Grandpa McGaw valued strength and independence more than anything else. He despised anything that reeked of weakness in any way. As an adult, he had very little to do with his family of origin because he saw them as weak and didn't want to associate himself with them. He worked in construction, and his favorite thing to do was to operate heavy machinery, tractors, dozers, graders, backhoes, front-end loaders, anything that moved big amounts of dirt around. Operating these machines, and sometimes literally moving mountains, gave him a sense of power unlike anything else he did. When I was growing up, we used to say that Grandpa McGaw had anger issues. He cursed and swore at pretty much everything and everyone in his life. I still have not entirely forgiven him for the way he treated my grandmother, who was perhaps the sweetest and most humble human being I have ever known. While he was not, as far as I know, physically abusive, he was clearly emotionally abusive, which was painful to witness. Grandpa McGaw kept a small arsenal of loaded guns in the house, shotguns and rifles and handguns. And one of the first things he did when he met someone new was to show them his guns, both as a point of pride and, I think, as a means of warning. He admired political leaders who talked tough, and he hated liberals. He loan sharked money to local residents who were poorer than he was, and when he died, our family had to figure out what to do with the 7 or 8 color television sets that he had repossessed from neighbors who had not kept up with their payments on loans that he had made them. He was an unpleasant man in many ways, but he loved his grandchildren. He doted on us, bought us toys and candy, found us endlessly entertaining. I remember his taking me on trips to a general store some miles away where he'd buy me comic books and chewing gum and baseball cards. Those car trips were challenging because Grandpa was always smoking, and he wouldn't let us roll down the car windows, and the smoke combined with the hilly, curvy roads in southeastern Ohio invariably made me nauseous. But I knew that this man, as angry and scary and messed up as he was, loved me. I didn't know what to do with that as a child. I didn't know how to reconcile his apparent love with his sometimes awful behavior. And I'm still struggling with that. Most of us, I think, have challenging relatives whom we simply cannot remember with complete fondness. People who, for one reason or another, were just not easy to deal with in life or in death. There are times when I can think of my grandfather and recognize that he was probably doing about the best he could, given his circumstances, that perhaps the only way he was able to survive was by becoming a harsh, sometimes emotionally violent person, that he didn't have as many choices or tools for dealing with his own demons and his own challenges as we have today. But it's still difficult. And yet, as challenging as some of our ancestors might be, they are a part of who we are. Their influence is felt for generations. And that influence is felt no less as a result of their deaths. The bonds of love and family, as well as the challenges of love and family, are no less real and no less important than they were when they were living among us. Although we sometimes tend to turn our ancestors and loved ones into saints, I think it's important not to do so. To look at them not in idealized terms, but as real human beings. The great 16th century Protestant reformer Martin Luther used this Latin phrase in his writings, simul justus et peccator, which means simultaneously righteous and sinful. As I mentioned, a similar thought was echoed several centuries later by the 19th century Unitarian preacher William Ellery Channing. Some theologians posited that all human beings were essentially evil or sinful. Others said that all human beings were essentially good or even saintly. Luther and later Channing saw the importance of recognizing that all of us are both, that all of us are saints and sinners at the same time. This dual nature means that our ability to choose how we will behave, how we will live our lives, is of great and lasting importance. The effects of our choices resonate far beyond the span of our own lives. All Souls Day gives us a chance to remember family members and loved ones who have died not as saints and not entirely as sinners, but as members, for better or worse, of the great family of all souls. Remembering them is important, even if it's sometimes painful, for it is in remembering that we are able to learn from their lives and to better understand their influence on our own lives. As we celebrate this All Souls Day, I hope and pray that we will do so in gratitude for the great gift of life that we have been given and in remembrance of those who are gone, knowing that love endures beyond death, knowing that every human being who has ever lived has been simultaneously a saint and a sinner, knowing that all those who are remembered are forever members of the great family of all souls. May it be so. Amen.
It's time for our morning offering. We don't have a designated offering this morning, so our collection will benefit Sunnyhill and will help defray our operating expenses. If you'd like to make a gift via our online giving system, you can do so by going to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says Online Giving, and then follow the instructions. Or you can give by text at 412-324-3130. Text the amount of your gift and the word pledge if you want your payment to apply to your 2022 Sunnyhill pledge. Otherwise, text gifts will go toward our general operating fund. You can also mail a check if you prefer, and you can find our mailing address on our website at sunnyhill.org. For those of you who are here with us in person, we'll be passing around the offering baskets in just a moment. Thank you, everyone, for your generosity.
The song the choir is about to
Please join me in saying the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you for your patience today. We fit a lot in, and we're almost done. Before we go, I do want to make a note that we have some beautiful new tables that are back in the corner of our room that have been constructed for media purposes, for our streaming and AV equipment. And they were constructed by our own Scott Smith, who I believe is here today. Scott, thank you so much. Scott is not so much a furniture maker as he is an artist, as you will see if you look at any of his work, including these tables. So please take a look at them when you have a chance. For now, we'll close with these words. To ask of death that it never come is futile, but it is not futility to pray that when death comes for us, it may take us from a world one corner of which is a little better because we were there. When we are dead and people weep for us and grieve, let it be because we touched their lives with beauty and simplicity. Let it not be said that life was good to us, but rather that we were good to life. Go in peace.